Hi, my name is Ferdia Durkin. I'm a freelance videographer based in Ireland. I'm also an ADV writer, making my way gradually around the globe. You can follow my travels via my YouTube channel and my Instagram account. Just search for Unordinary World.
Welcome to the Real Riders Podcast. My name's Simon Josie, and this is a podcast about motorcycling and filmmaking. If this is your first time here, welcome and thanks for listening. Yes, it's been a while since I published a new episode, and that's mainly because I've been flat out finishing up another podcast and also completing a new limited series podcast. Oh, and the weather was quite nice too, and therefore I had to get away and do some moto camping in France. I'm sure you understand that. As you heard, my guest for today's episode is Ferdia Durkin, who is the second guest I've had on from Ireland. Ferdia has been YouTubing since 2021, and most of his content centres around various tours he's made. We'll get to my chat with Ferdia shortly. I want to take this opportunity to remind you about the Adventure Motorcycle Film Festival, which is a joint production of the Trail and Adventure Motorbike podcast and the Real Riders podcast. The festival will occur on the 28th of February next year at the Brewery Arts Centre in Kendal, which is in the UK's Lake District. We recently passed the deadline for early bird film submissions, which was the 30th of September. However, there's still plenty of time for you to submit your film, as the regular submission deadline is the 30th of November, and there's also a late deadline of the 31st of December. If you're planning on attending the event, ticket information can be found on the festival's website, www.advmotofilmfest.com, and you can find the link in the show notes. And if you haven't done so already, give the festival's Instagram account a follow at advmotofilmfest. The link is also in the show notes. Okay, before we get to my chat with Ferdia, I also want to remind you that the Real Riders podcast has an account on Instagram where you will find, amongst other things, trailers for each new episode. And if you want to know what I've been watching recently, follow the Real Riders podcast account on Blue Sky. Links for both the Instagram and Blue Sky accounts are in the show notes. If you're so inclined, please consider rating or liking the Real Riders podcast in your favourite podcast app or on YouTube. This will help other listeners find the podcast. Righto, let's get to my talk with Ferdia. Welcome to the podcast, Ferdia. Thanks for joining me on the show today. How are you?
It's an absolute pleasure. I'm great. Do you want to take a guess as to how the weather is in Dublin?
I think I could take a guess, and I think the probability of me being correct is probably quite high because, everyone knows what the weather's like in Ireland. I'm sure it's grey and
For
lightly
sure.
threatening rain.
Yeah. It's actually worse than usual. We're at the start of a storm, so
Okay.
it's pretty exciting days.
Yeah, I think that storm might be getting over our way in Germany here on Sunday or maybe Saturday.
Probably, yeah. We usually get the brunt of it here, stuck out here in the west, so we're the guinea pig.
Yeah, thanks for that. I guess, okay, for those few listeners who are still with us, I would like to move on to the first question. And, because my listeners know that I'm no good at small talk, so I will get straight into it. From your YouTube channel, I can see that you've published 82 videos, and the first being titled On the Road, Ireland to Marseille, which appeared on the 13th of May 2021. Tell me how you got to that point of taking that trip, filming it, publishing to YouTube.
Yeah, 2021. So obviously at that stage, we'd had a year of the pandemic, which I'd spent in Ireland, like everyone else, locked down. But towards the end of 2020, we had the first sort of easing of the pandemic, and I was ready to get out. So I decided I'd move to Paris with the notion of taking up my dance training. I was training pretty intensely in tango here in Dublin, and I decided, right, I need a change. There were issues going on back in Ireland, so I did a runner. Went to Paris. I lived there for about a month and a half. I lasted, and I did not like it. My French is mediocre. I got a job au pairing for a little French girl, so I'd go pick her up from school and then take her back to the apartment, spend the day with her and her cat, and then go home to my own apartment. And because the pandemic then was starting to sort of ramp up again, it was pretty isolated. So after a month and a half, I was like, nah, I'm out of here. So then I moved to Porto in Portugal, and lockdown came in everywhere except Portugal at that time. So I could move around a little bit inside Portugal. But it was winter. Winter in Porto is pretty much like winter in Ireland, rainy, cold. So came back to Ireland for Christmas. Porto was sort of like, I don't know. The pandemic was a time of a seismic shift in everyone's life, I think. And yeah, I went through it too. So my my long night of the soul was in Porto in winter. Came back to Ireland, started 2021, and decided I'd move to Marseille with one of my best friends and the girl I was with at the time. And we moved to Marseille. Sunny in February, which is a novelty to me. And yeah, pandemic restrictions started to lift after Christmas. Flew back to Ireland, picked up what was my girlfriend's bike, which is the BMW or a 50C. So it's this really unique cruiser that BMW made. I think is one of the most beautiful bikes in the world. Like, it's stunning. It is such a head turner, and you see very few of them. So I picked that up, rode it down through France and into Marseille. It was still March at the time. I got snow on the way. There was rain. It was miserable, but I had a great time. And the decision to record it all was very deliberate because I had been riding for a couple of years by that stage, well, pretty much all in Dublin. And I've always wanted to travel the world. And I decided that if I was going to do that, if I was going to start traveling, it wouldn't just be for myself. I really wanted to share it. Share it with mostly with my family, first of all. And then my friends aren't really so interested in bikes or in travel. But my youngest brother, Kuan, is a musician. And he has a YouTube channel, and he got in. He had some, let's say, low-key internet stardom during the pandemic with his music. So I was like, well, there's something to that. And he actually started earning money from it. And this was at the age of 17 from his bedroom. So I was like, my career direction is thrown on the rocks because of pandemic. Let's see where this takes us. So I bought a €50 action camera. I think it recorded. It was one of these real bad fisheye 1080 cameras, stuck it on my helmet and used my phone both to record what was, I suppose, B-roll, but also to record audio. I'd just stick my phone in my tank bag and then run earphones up into my helmet and use that to record some audio. Actually, I don't think there was any audio recorded in that very first video. Very little, I think.
I think you might be right about that. I was looking at some of your earlier videos earlier today, and I noticed some remarkably familiar music, and I was going to ask you about that.
YouTube Studio.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm sure.
But yeah, not. I think the style of those early films is quite different from certainly the latter ones. In terms of the amount of talking that you're doing to screen. But tell me, there are different ways that we can record our thoughts or our trips, sometimes just in audio, sometimes with a written word. What was it about? Was it purely the fact that you saw your brother having this success with YouTube that inspired you to maybe do the YouTubing thing as well? Or had you had any previous experience with filmmaking that sort of set you up for this trip?
No, not really. I really enjoyed following other bikers who were traveling around the world. I wanted to do the same because when I was stuck in Ireland, dreaming of traveling the world, being able to watch their videos, it was a sort of escape. So, the usual names. But no, in terms of filmmaking, no, I've no formal training in that whatsoever. It was very much just buy the cheapest action camera I could and learn on the go. I got a cracked version of Premiere Pro 2015 My laptop kept crashing every 20 minutes. But yeah, I enjoyed the process of figuring things out, learning it. And it was a change. It was a change from what I was doing before. And it came in at the right time, I think, in my life to sort of fill in this creative void that had opened up because of the pandemic.
And I mean, you referred to the tango dancing earlier, but I know that actually you were on a completely different track, not a dancing track, not a videography track. So what were you doing before all of this? Because it's, having read your website, I know that it was actually quite a big shift away from what you were doing previously. So perhaps tell me what you were doing earlier in terms of study and career path.
Yeah, the dancing was the first sort of crack in that whole thing, which is why I took to it so hungrily. I'm a musician by training. That's my formal education, classical music. I come from a family of musicians. I have a university degree in academics, in history and politics, but I did that sort of on the side, whilst still pursuing my music education. Performing, I was teaching. I taught my way through university in order to, pay rent and go out for pints. And it's really, I don't want to say it's all I've ever done because it's not. I've done, my family and my parents were very supportive of trying out lots of different things in my upbringing, but the focus was always on music. So like when we were kids, we would come home from school, we'd eat our lunch in the car, into the house, school bags would be thrown in the corner, and it was do your practice first and then your homework second, or at least that was the way for 2 out of 3 of us because we had 2 pianos. So 2 of us would be practicing, and then whoever drew the short straw had to do their homework first. But yeah, no, that was my upbringing. The focus was very much on music.
And that all ended, and we can maybe get into that. But what I wanted to ask was, are there parallels between the worlds of music and videography that may not be obvious, apparent to lay people like myself?
Yeah, absolutely. Because, it's still a creative endeavor at the end of the day. With videography, my professional videography it's just client gigs. It's covering events, social media, advertising. There's not a huge creative element there, but you still have a job to do to create something that didn't exist before you came along and did it. With music, it was sort of the same. I say sort of because in classical music, you're trained to read scores that's put in front of you, and you're trained to read them as fluently and as easily as you would read a book, and then transpose what you see in front of you into music to perform it then to an audience. So in a sense, there is also a creative limitation to classical music, which I did always struggle with as well. I composed a lot as a teenager. That was my sort of creative outlet as a teenager, and then as a later teenager, fell into rock and roll as a sort of not even a rebellion, just as a sort of need to fulfill something, and started writing my own songs. I started writing a lot. I churned out reams and reams of teenage poetry, which will never be read by anyone because it's really oh my god! If you wrote poetry as a teenager, you know what that means. But there was always a need to do something that wasn't just stand on stage and perform something that was written 200-300 years ago.
Tell me, and I think this applies equally to music, creation of music, and to filmmaking or videography. How do you deal with the fact that what you love doing, i.e. making music, making films, is also what you're doing to earn a crust? How do you deal with that tension? Or is it even a tension for you?
No, for me it's not a tension. I love it. I've only ever had one real job in my life, which was working as a dishwasher. And during the months I did that, I said to myself, I never want to work in my life again. And what I mean by work is to do something where I turn up, I fill in the hours, and I am just going mad in my head. The worst part of that job was the radio station that they played, because when you're stuck in a sweaty kitchen and you're listening to the same songs, I didn't realize that they played popular music songs, the same song 3 or 4 times in one day. I became very aware of that fact when I was washing the dishes. So no, my whole, mission since that point, throughout my 20s is try and figure out a way where I can hopefully more than one money, earn some money doing the thing that I want to do. It doesn't feel like work. And if I manage to do that, if I manage to swing that, and it's such a hustle, but I think I will be incredibly lucky if I can say I've managed to do that.
Mm. Having gone through those teenage angst years of writing reams of poetry, and obviously there's certainly in our teens there's quite a well of creativity, shall we say, for for whatever reasons. Is that something that you ever worry about when it comes to filmmaking or videography, that well will dry up, and that you won't be able to come up with new ideas or new projects, or just the enthusiasm for creating something new?
Yes and no. Yes, I worry that it might dry up, but I think the no reason is because I think I've figured out what it is that causes it to dry up for me. And in my case, I find that routine and sort of, I don't know, when things get too predictable and too easy, I get very comfortable. And then when you find yourself in this comfortable environment, there isn't really much of an impetus there to create something, because I think all your needs are satisfied, and that's just it. Whereas I find that when I come under pressure, so for example, I think one of the reasons why people are creative in their teens is because they are actually under a huge amount of pressure. I don't think it's quite realized by people how much pressure teens are under, not just from school or their parents, but it's, at least in my case, I felt the pressure to be something, and I wasn't sure what that was meant to be. And I would, rack my brains over what that could be. And that pressure, I think, in my case, is an impetus to either write or play music, or now, as the case is, to film things. I think it's just a way of relieving that pressure in a productive way.
We talked about the music a little bit in the filmmaking, but I know that also you have continued to do quite a bit of writing. In fact, that you have a first draft of a book written already. When you think about being creative, what's your go-to? Do you first want to express yourself musically or visually, like with video, or is it the written word that you're drawn to initially?
I'm not sure. Some things are easier than others. The writing is the hardest, actually, but it's actually for me the most fulfilling when I figure it out, when I get it out. With music, I haven't played now for quite a while. I'm still going through a healing process with my relationship with music, but that's the easiest to do. It's, when I go home and there's nobody in the house, I sit at the piano or, play a guitar, and that's just easy. It's as natural to me as eating or drinking or breathing or talking. Filming is somewhere in the middle, actually. It's not easy, but in a sense, when you film something, the thing that you are filming is already there in the world, existing to some extent. The creative element is how do you frame it? How do you capture it? How do you convey the thing that you are seeing in the way that you want to, portray it? And that's the challenge, and that's the creative element in filming for me.
Given that you didn't have like a formal training in filmmaking, can you tell me what your standout memories are of your initial experience with the production process, from shooting, or even pre-production through the shooting, post and the post-production process? What do you remember about those first experiences?
Frustration, just utter frustration. That I wanted to know I wanted to do something, but I didn't know how to do it. So, every little thing was a couple of hours on the internet, watching YouTube videos. How do you do simple things like an effect or something like that? And then, like I say, my cracked version of Premiere Pro and my poor laptop just kept crashing. It was just utter frustration. But when you finally press export, and after the 3 or 4 hours that it took my laptop to export a 10-minute video, yeah, being able to watch that video, that was good, because you have created something from nothing, and I was able to sleep well that night, and every night that I managed to do that.
So there's those of us who've sort of self-taught ourselves a little bit about filmmaking and cutting video have gone through that steep learning curve. And is that a contrast, say, with the writing, that with writing you don't have such a steep learning curve? You may not be producing something particularly good to start with, but you can, that barrier to entry is pretty low with writing in this day and age, with everyone having access typically to a computer or something like that.
I really don't know. I mean, I think you're right in that even before computers, people pretty much had a pen and paper to hand. So, there wasn't a technical barrier there for people to start writing. The thing is, I don't know if my writing's any good. So, unlike my videos, which I put out there in the world for, public scrutiny, I haven't done that really with my writing. I keep an online blog, which was more active around 2021, 2022, all the way up to 2023. And I really enjoyed doing that. And the feedback that I got from the writing actually meant a lot more to me than the feedback I would get from the YouTube videos, because fewer people would take the time to read a 20-minute blog. So the people who did, I really appreciated that they would take the time to do that. And of course, you take the positive comments as gracefully and as graciously as you can, but I don't know. I never, when people say, your writing is good, I don't actually believe them. I think, the whole writing project and the writing journey, that has yet to be revealed as to how good the writing actually is.
Just thinking about that, I mean, that's the thing, I guess, about when you're performing on stage, even if it's not spoken, you get probably a pretty immediate sense of whether the crowd is with you or not, right?
Absolutely. Yeah, it's a huge part of it. And it's one of the things that I miss most about my music life is I'm not an introverted person. I'm not an extroverted person. I'm, happy bang in the middle. But I absolutely loved being on stage. And there is definitely an element of, the people pleaser characteristic in me that I've learned to manage as I've gotten older. But the validation and the gratification that you get when you're in front of a room full of people applauding you for something that you've done, that is very addicting, and it's you do get a high from it. It's performer high, and performers get a high from that, I think, throughout their life. If they're a careerist, I think the high remains the same, regardless of how many years you've done it, which is probably why people keep doing it. But the low is also real, coming down after a good performance, that's a real low, because your brain is just flooded with all of this, these endorphins and dopamine, and, it's like coming off any drug. Once that is out of your system, you're like, oh my God, I don't like this at all. This isn't fun. So I think it's an interesting comparison, because with the videos, the gratification is a lot more strung out. And with the writing, it's exponentially more strung out. So it's probably a healthy thing, actually, in my case anyway, to have weaned myself off that and to just be happy and content in the production of the whatever it is you're producing, as opposed to the applause at the end.
And just maybe to close off that topic, I do want to ask, what's the status with the book?
The book, I can show you. I have it right here beside me.
Oh, really?
Yeah. It's fine. Like the first draft came in at 105,000 words. Apparently, a sort of travel memoir genre should be about 70,000 words. So I have a huge amount of cutting out to do, which is what I'm trawling through at the moment. I banged out the book in 3 months there earlier this year. I loved it, really enjoyed that process. I've learned that when it comes to writing, at least, routine is my friend, because I was able to get up in the morning, make my coffee, start writing at 9 o'clock out in the glass house. We had a really nice spring here in Ireland, actually, which helped. The day would heat up as the pages filled up. And then I'd stop maybe about 1, 2 o'clock after 5 or 6 hours of solid writing, go around to the library, print off my pages, turn them upside down, start again the next day. And it was very intense. It was very intense. And it was the first time I've done something like that. I really enjoyed it. This stage that I'm at now, actually having to read what I wrote, not enjoying that so much, because my God, there's an awful lot of crap in there. Jesus. So I'll update you on that in about a year.
Okay, please do. I mean, that's sort of, I want to ask then, do you enjoy the editing process in anything you do?
Yeah, I do. I do enjoy editing my travel videos. I less enjoy editing just, my professional videography stuff, because that's stuff I'm, doing for money. I still enjoy it. Like, every job is a challenge. It's a challenge because I'm still learning as I go. And that's probably one of the reasons why I'm engaged in this at the moment. It is a new craft to learn, and I do enjoy the process of learning. And yeah, the challenge, it gives me something to work towards. And when you've got to deliver an edit to a client, it needs to be the best that you can possibly deliver, even if that means, in my case right now, working beyond the hours that you get paid for in order to make the product as polished as it can be. I'm happy to do that, without a doubt. I put in the hours. And yeah, so I do enjoy that editing process, but I much prefer editing my own videos.
So when you describe yourself as a videographer, what does that actually mean in terms of the roles that you take in a video production?
Yeah, at least here in Ireland, for the level that I'm operating at, it's, a client will engage you to produce a piece of media from start to finish. So that means, you're involved in the shooting and in the post. You've got to do both, which I enjoy, because, it means you can be very concise with what you shoot, and you can give the client a fairly accurate estimation of what to expect by the end of it. And if they're happy with that, okay, you go ahead with it, you do the job, do the edit, deliver it to them, they're happy with it, and they pay you. And that's pretty much it. I work as I'm a sole trader, it's just me, so that's pretty standard. A videography team would be, 1 to 2, 3 people max. If you're looking at anything more than that, you're looking into getting a production company to do the thing for you, and the budget would be much higher than what I charge. I'm sort of at the middle of the lower range in terms of the media industry here.
In all your filmmaking, do you ever think, it'd just be so great to have someone else, just maybe to have someone run the camera for a day while I'm riding the bike, or someone to do the sounds? I mean, do you sort of dream about that? It would be just good to have like a clone of myself to help out,
I would not want a clone of myself. I do not want to work with me in any sort of universe. Definitely not. But yeah, I would, and I have worked with other people before, and it is something I do enjoy, and it's something. Okay, speaking of the videography side, the filmmaking side, first of all, it's definitely something I want to do more of. I think it's where the career trajectory lies. It's the natural progression. And I enjoy working with other people. I enjoy the more people you bring together, the better it's ever going to be, I think, because, you've got so many different ideas coming into together. And so long as there are no egos getting in the way, the sum of all the parts should be able to, produce something that is just better than what one person can come up with. Now, on the biking side, shooting bikes, I'm happy working by myself. And I've thought a lot about this coming up to my next expedition. Do I want to do it by myself, or do I want to travel with someone to help me shoot? I think the huge benefit that having someone else would bring is relieving me of the pressure to do everything. I could just focus on what I really like doing, which is meeting people, talking to people, extracting the stories from people without having to worry about the camera. Because when I'm by myself, I don't record other people. If you watch my videos, for example, you might get the impression that I'm just moving through the world without ever seeing another soul, and that's simply not true. It's just not true. But the fact is, when I roll up to somewhere, I start talking to someone, the first thing I do is, if the cameras are rolling, turn them off, and not just turn them off, but put them away, so that the other person can feel totally relaxed that there is no camera going, and that this interaction is purely for you and I. It's entirely natural, and there's no expectation here. The problem with that is you miss so much of what, as I travel around, the story isn't about me traveling around. The story is about all the little stories of other people, the individual stories of their lives, what they do, where they are, how life is for them in their place. That's something I'm trying to convey with my writing. And I can do that with my writing. But because I'm traveling by myself and shooting by myself, I can't just say, oh, hold up there a minute, just give me 5 minutes, got to set this interview up. And then it becomes just that, an interview, which is not the same thing. Yeah. So, do I shoot with someone in the future? Maybe to produce some sort of highly polished traditional documentary style thing, where, there are sit-down interviews, maybe. But for the stuff I'd like to do going forward, I still need to figure out a way to, address this problem of how do I capture people's stories on camera whilst keeping them authentic. I don't know.
Good luck with that. I mean, I'm currently slowly working my way through The Long Way Home, Charlie and Ewan's most recent.
Yeah.
And part of the reason why it's taking me so long is because I'm finding it pretty boring. And you realize that, and maybe I've just grown up watching too much YouTube as well, that a lot of the situations are contrived, and people try their best to look spontaneous, but that they've, set everything up to a certain extent, made sure the camera's in the right place, had a little talk about what they're going to talk about. And it's actually only those genuine moments of spontaneity which come across as being sort of really engaging, I find. Everything else, I find it pretty forgettable. So
sure.
I don't know how you're going to solve that problem, to be honest, because it takes someone with a lot of balls, shall we say, to be able to, as you say, not turn off the camera when you first meet people and just hope that it goes well. And that may be difficult enough in our own cultures and our own languages. When you add the complexity of trying to do that with someone from a different culture, with a different language, the potential for misunderstanding is massive, and it can easily go wrong very quickly, I would have thought.
Yeah. Did you find, though, that in The Long Way Home, that this was more of an issue than it was in the previous series that they did, including the Americas series when they rode the electric bikes? Did you feel any difference in the production of those series?
That's a good question. And the problem is, I watched The Long Way Round, The Long Way Down, The Long Way Up well before I started watching YouTube.
Gotcha.
And so my tastes have definitely changed in the last 5 years. And my tolerance for that lack of spontaneity, should we say, has probably become more acute, which means that my memory of those earlier series is more, my memory is more favorable, because I do feel that they were less contrived. Maybe that's maybe a little bit harsh to say that, but there was a more spontaneous energy to the earlier series, I felt.
Sure. Yeah.
But is that just because I've seen so many, having watched so many Itchy Boots episodes, or whoever, vlogging episodes on YouTube now, that I'm just a bit jaded by the whole approach in many ways, and I because of the people I talk to about vlogging and filmmaking, I realize just how difficult it is to capture those genuine moments. So I guess my short answer would be, I don't know, because I feel my own tastes have changed quite a bit in the last 5 years.
Gotcha. I think I remember, it's been a while since I've watched them, but definitely in Long Way Round, there were periods where the two guys were by themselves, and they would take turns in filming their encounters. And, it was this shitty, grainy, 480 thing. But the fact is, there were only two of them there.
Yeah.
And the camera was probably pretty small, and it wasn't a sort of a big hustle of a crew setting up or whatever. There was an interaction occurring, and Charlie or Ewan would probably just, switch on the camera, put it on the tank and whatever. And then, that's one solution that I would see to achieving the sort of filming interactions whilst keeping them authentic. If there are only two people, the cameras are small, and I mean, the technological advancement in 20 years from when they made the long way to now it definitely facilitates this. Two people on a bike roll up, we have a situation develops, an encounter develops with some people that we meet. One of us hits play on the camera, recording the camera, and the other one points to the camera, because I think I wouldn't ever record someone without letting them know that they're being recorded. But I would also say that there is a way to make people feel comfortable in front of cameras. I think I'm able to do. It's definitely something that I deliberately do in my videography work, because sometimes you have to do little interviews with people who are not, they're not comfortable in front of a camera, and it's your job to get them to be comfortable. And I think I can do that to some extent anyway. So yeah, that is one possible solution, is just to keep it low key. You mentioned itchy boots there. Like, I remember when Insta360 cameras started to become a thing, they just look like a thing on a stick. They don't look like a camera. I mean, now we know what they look like, but no doubt she was able to travel around parts of the world where people hadn't seen an Insta360 camera before, didn't know what it was, and I'm pretty sure, didn't let them know that they were being recorded. My point in saying this is there was a situation a while back where, she was being extorted by some corrupt cops. And after she uploaded the video, the cops were identified, and they were dismissed from the service. On the one hand, yeah, okay, great, there's no place for corrupt cops. But on the other hand, those cops probably had a family to feed. And when you're a wealthy Northern European traveling through parts of the world where, they don't have so much money, it's not really our place to deprive people of their livelihood, even if they're doing something wrong by trying to extort money. I don't know, it's a contentious issue. But I did feel a little bit uncomfortable with the whole them being recorded, not knowing they were being recorded. And not just them, but everybody that this situation happens with. It doesn't sit right with me.
Yeah, it's okay. I could talk at length about my my experiences in the Philippines and underpaid police forces and what that means, but I won't bore people with that. I find it interesting when you watch the really big productions like Charlie and Ewan Long Way Home, and you see a crowd shot, and you see a number of faces have been blurred out, and a number of faces just in the crowd have not. And you realize that, if that's happened, that means that the production assistants have gone round and individually checked with everyone who's seen in that shot. Are you happy to be on, or do you want your identity, removed from this? And of course, amateur filmmakers making their round-the-world movie, they're not going to have the time, the resources to do that kind of thing. Whether they should is, of course, another question. But
Sure.
It's one of the things that I always find kind of amusing about the big productions, because they try and give it a vloggy style, but the fact that half the people have had their faces blurred out means, no, there's a massive team of people behind them to make, to do all this tidy up bit, right?
Yeah, for sure. I think it's definitely an interesting point, and one of my goals for the next expedition is to get more people on camera to tell their stories. Now, I can't go around with a top box full of release forms, but I keep in touch with pretty much everyone that I've had more than a passing encounter with on my travels. I can just get their name, I can get their phone number, and then in the future, when it comes to editing, I can give them a call and say, look, I'm going to put this out. This is going out X, Y, and Z. Are you happy enough with that? They say yes. Okay, just put it in an email for me, whatever. There's a way to get around this, without making too much of a big thing about it. while still also, making it doable for the likes of us, single team motorbike travelers to do the right thing, not just regulation wise, but just morally do the right thing.
Yeah, yeah. What's your favorite part of the filmmaking process and why?
Yeah, I like remembering a time before I set out to do something, and then the time when such a thing is done, being able to say, this, it's the whole process. I can't narrow it down to one. I suppose I really like, I like setting up shots. I like framing shots, especially the ride-by shots. They take a lot of effort, and I ride an old GS. It takes a lot of energy out of you to get on and off that thing. Dozens of times a day, because it's just such a big bike. It's you got to keep yourself fueled up with enough chocolate and coffee, sugar and caffeine to get through the day. But I do like setting up the shot, framing it, and then imagining how I will edit this. Everything I shoot with the edit in mind. It's something, yeah. When you've done both the whole time, you become pretty good at knowing, when it's yourself editing anyway, what you're going to need and what you don't want to get. So, and I like clicking export on the final product. That's pretty good. That's a nice feeling.
Just talking about knowing what to shoot and sort of having the edit in mind before you start the shooting. How long did that skill, because it is a learned skill, how long did that take to learn? Like, how many videos in were you before you started to go, oh, I need this type of shot, I need this type of shot, I know how this is going to play out?
All of them. And I'm still learning it. I'm still getting to grips with the whole thing. Yeah, I mean, I bought my first proper camera at the end of, what was it? Maybe 2021? Yeah, at the end of 2021. And that was like opening up a whole world of possibilities. Because before that, as you can very evidently see on my YouTube channel, it's just a shitty action camera and a phone. So, having a proper DSLR with a zoom lens, and I made sure to get a nice zoom lens. It's like 18-135. So there's a lot of, you have a lot of scope there with just one camera. I'm not much of a tech person, actually. I'm not huge into the nitty-gritty of cameras. I like, framing and lighting. When you get into like codecs and all of this stuff, my sort of eyes glaze over. It's more the involved aspect that I enjoy.
That is one thing I've noticed, that you have made the effort to capture the drive-by shots, and it makes so much difference to the production. And any of us who've dabbled in this area know how much effort it takes. And like you say, particularly if you've got a big bike. In your travels out east, or even just anywhere in Europe, maybe even in Ireland, do you have any problems with security of your equipment, in terms of, because you have to set it up on a tripod and then go away and then come back? Is that something, have you encountered any practical problems with people wanting to, oh, that looks like a nice camera, I'll take that, thanks very much?
No, but then again, I tend not to shoot in populated areas. I think I'd say a lot of bikers can relate to this. We tend to avoid cities. There's just something about them that is just too much hassle. And when you're on a motorbike, you don't have much security. Like my panniers, I have hard panniers, they're lockable. So that's something, at least. But when I'm wild camping, you're very aware of how vulnerable you are. And when you are feeling vulnerable, to be honest, the gear is the least of your worries. You're more just sort of concerned about yourself and your immediate valuables, like your passport and your phone, these sort of things. So look, when I'm riding out and I set up the camera, there's always, if there's like plenty of traffic going around or pedestrians, you're sort of like, but you get a feel for it. And what I've found is that the further east I've got, the more comfortable I am setting the camera up and leaving it, which is an interesting phenomenon. And when I get back here to Europe, I tend not to leave it for very long in one place at all. I don't know if that's just my perception as a sort of a naive tourist in these, foreign countries, or if there's something real to that. Maybe there is. But thankfully, so far, I've had nothing stolen. But it is a concern for my next trip because I've got better gear now. I really don't want it to be stolen.
Yeah.
So I need to have some sort of security solution. It probably is going to fall back on the locked top box. I think that's as secure as it can be.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Actually, I should have mentioned also the fact that you've done a little trip around Australia, or should we say from Sydney to Melbourne, right?
Exactly. Australia has been a bit grandiose about it.
Yeah. I mean, I'm assuming you're going to try and get back to Australia because there's so much more to see in Australia, and maybe on a bigger bike at some stage. I think you may have even said that. And people go check out the videos where Ferdia's maxing out at about 60 kilometers per hour on a CB125 with the worst looking chain and a fast deflating back tire. But I had to ask you one question about the Australia trip because you did quite a lot of camping there, and hats off because I come from New Zealand. We do not have snakes. We have a few spiders, but nothing compared to Australian spiders. So were you just completely naive when you went camping in Australia, or were you quite well informed and just incredibly brave? So you can make it up as you go along here. I really don't care, but I have to ask this question. I always ask people about snakes and spiders in Australia.
Yeah, I had a can of DEET with me, so.
Okay.
But when I was in Turkey last year, I met an young Aussie guy, and we ended up traveling for a couple of days together. And he lives in Germany. He's in his early 30s, so he had flown out to Turkey just for a couple of days, rented a little van, and was traveling around. And he was sleeping outside of his van on a piece of foam that he had found beside the road, wrapped in his great leather overcoat and this feral beard. Like he's quite a guy. And I was like, man, are you absolutely insane? There's scorpions here. Look, there's a scorpion right there. What are you doing? And he was like, they don't really want to hurt you. I was like, that's not the point. But then I thought about it. I was like, yeah, at least in this part of the world, there aren't too many things that can hurt you. And when you're in a tent, you're pretty much safe. Now, when I was going to Australia, I did ask him. I was like, Bryce, tell me honestly, give me a breakdown of what I need to look out for, what I need to be careful of, what I need to do if I get bitten. And he told me that, and he works as a sort of outback guide, so he's a pretty good guy to ask. So yeah, no, I was happy enough. I wasn't too concerned. In fact, those weeks are not around Australia, around New South Wales and Victoria. That was the easiest camping I've ever done on a motorbike trip. So easy. They have, the parks there are so well set up. There is this, what do they call them? Grey nomads? Is that the word? For the retired people who go around in their trailers. There's this whole culture of camping there that doesn't exist here at least in Ireland. And I suppose because it's such a big country and they've so much space, there are facilities there and people are less suspicious. So it was just so easy, so easy. I really had a great time there. And yeah, I would like to go back for sure. I have an article, I hope, being published in Australia Road Rider magazine. So if that goes well, hopefully there's a case to be made to going back to Australia to do the rest of the country on a slightly better bike.
Yeah.
I hope.
Yeah. Is there any part of the filmmaking process that you really dislike, that you just can't wait to get over with every time you make a new film?
No, actually. You got me thinking now. I don't think so. I really don't think so. Like, there are parts of the process which are more involved or more tedious than others, but they've got to be done. So you just go through them. I suppose if it's a difficult edit, it can become a bit of a headache and you need a few more cups of coffee than you usually would. And that can be a little frustrating. But yeah, either that's your fault for not getting the right shots, the shots you need, in which case you've only yourself to blame, and blame myself, I do a lot. Or if it's if it's a professional job for a client, well, then you're really in trouble if you didn't get the right shots. That hasn't happened so far, thank goodness. But yeah, it's just about, this is it. This is the process. Get up, take a break, come back in 10 minutes, back to it. Spending so many hours in front of a screen is not, I don't actually enjoy it, but you've got to do it if you want to have a video at the end of the day.
Yeah.
I get stiff, my eyes hurt, I get headaches. I suppose, all of those elements of, this craft that we do, they ain't so enjoyable.
Vlogging is a very distinct genre within motorcycle filmmaking. What motivated you to start vlogging?
Like I said at the start, if I get to travel the world, I will record it because it's something that I want to share with people who wish to view it, who want to experience it. I'm not forcing it down anyone's throat. I'm just putting it out there. It's an offering. And even if, only a dozen people watch it, if those dozen people are extracting some value from it because, you're getting to see things they haven't, maybe they won't, then that is the purpose. It's sharing because it's the right thing to do. I'm very conscious of the fact that I may not have been lucky enough to do this. I may have been someone who, whose only experience of the world was watching Itchy Boots and other motorbike travelers. And, the fact is I'm not. I'm lucky enough to be able to travel and to film it. So I don't know. It's just something I've got to do. I want to share it. It's interesting that you say vlogging though, because the whole YouTube channel, the whole Unordinary World project, YouTube was the medium available to me, and it's how I got into professional videography. I got into professional videography through the motorbike vlogging because, I'd spent a couple of €100 on gear. I was like, well, Jesus, I've got to make this pay for itself. Let's see if I can get a few gigs. And it started off very small, word of mouth, doing favors. But, the favors would throw a few euros your way, and the gear paid for itself. And then you get better and you say, okay, let's make a go of making a business out of this for now. So far, it's working, it's paying off. But yeah, no, my entry into professional videography was through vlogging, this amateur style hobby. So I don't know how one led to another. In my case, it was a natural progression and a need to make money that led into the professional stuff. But in my YouTube journey, I would hope that there is some, development in the quality of the videos and in the sort of, you call it filmmaking, which when you call my videos films, I'm very flattered because for me they're videos. When I think of film, I think of something that is a piece of art. What I make are YouTube videos. Not that there's anything wrong with that. They have a different purpose. They're going to a specific platform with an audience who are looking to watch a YouTube video. They're not a paying audience to go to sit down in a cinema. But I would like to sort of professionalize the quality of my YouTube videos. So on the YouTube channel, like the Australia vids that you talked about, they're the most recent ones and they're from the start of this year. This has been a very quiet year. This year has been just a focus on saving money to get on the road again. But I think those are probably the best videos I've done because, yeah, I think I have just improved. I know my camera a bit better. I know how to edit a bit better. But I think the work I'm most proud of is I have this series called The World Through the Visor, which is pretty much the sort of brand name, the umbrella term I give to anything that is motorbike and film related. And not just film, actually, it'll be with the book too, because it's in the title. It's how I see the world through my motorbike visor. And this is The World Through the Visor Odyssey, because it was, about my travels in Greece, and I put together a 12-part mini series. And altogether, I think there's about 3.5 hours of final cut there, which is quite a bit of work. And it was the first serious, cohesive, from start to finish, thematically related body of work. And in that, I travel around Greece, I stop at historical sites, I talk about them, and I talk about how I'm feeling. There is a mix of the vlogging GoPro style, but also, pieces to camera delivered. I would like to do more of that. The expedition I did last year, when I rode a big round trip from the south of Spain, where I was living at the time, all the way to, I made it to the Caspian Sea, but because Azerbaijan has closed borders, I had to leave the bike in Georgia and fly to Azerbaijan. But I made it. God damn it, I made it to Azerbaijan. And then I rode it all the way back. I recorded everything. There is so much footage locked on a hard drive that I can't access there because the hard drive crashed. So all my footage from last year's expedition is, well, that's why it's not on YouTube. I'm sort of giving a sort of explanation as to why the channel has been so quiet. But on that trip, I made an effort to do more pieces to camera, to spend more time getting the drive-by shots, because I do want to, at this moment in life anyway, I want to pursue the filming to a more professional standard. So yeah, no, I did make more of an effort to sort of, they're not just, GoPro vlogs anymore, even though that's where I started out, but it's been a fun progression. It's been a journey of learning and discovery.
Yeah, I like the way that you picked up this fact that I often, even if people call themselves videographers, I will quite often actually, in an almost deliberate way, refer to them as filmmakers. And I think over time, that distinction will blur and perhaps disappear. In fact, I would struggle now to explain what the difference is between videography and filmmaking. Of course, there are some technical definitions, and maybe that's the safe place to go. But I think usually it's implied, and you sort of hinted at this earlier, that there's something a little bit different between film and videography in terms of the content. But I think also you run into problems when you start going down that path, because of course there have been many documentaries shot on film in a cinematic style which have had, releases through cinema screens rather than just say on television or YouTube and stuff like that. So I think it becomes very difficult for me anyway, maybe people who've studied this could argue back and say, no, Simon, that's completely wrong. Of course, there's a distinction. But for me at the moment, I find it difficult to distinguish between those two things, if it's even possible. I find it really interesting that you do talk a lot about the work that you do to camera, because this is actually quite a feature of your work. And even in the earlier work where there's a lot of, should we say, more vloggy, typical vlog style, where you have a microphone in the helmet and you're talking while you're riding. Clearly you have moved away, or not moved away, but you've moved to doing a lot more of the pieces to camera. How do you do that? Like, do you script that? Because one thing I noticed, because I was looking at the Greek videos, and you're packing a lot of facts and figures into what you're talking about. You've obviously done a bit of research, but are you scripted, or is that just all coming off the top of your head?
Yeah, no, it's off the cuff. There is probably one or two videos on my YouTube channel that were scripted, and they were my sort of attempts to make a documentary where I actually wrote a script. But yeah, in general, like the Greek videos, that is unscripted. I have a degree in history, and it's something that I keep up to date on. So obviously you don't remember every single fact and figure in your head all of the time, but it's like you only have to do a very quick and superficial skim of the facts and the figures to be able to deliver a more in-depth explanation, because the deeper level of knowledge is there. I think that's the point of education, right? It's not to just cram your head full of random facts. It's to sort of lay this sort of seabed that everything else can rest upon.
Yeah. Just continuing on a little bit with this theme about vlogging, because vlogging is such a big phenomena across YouTube, and so many people have tried it. You actually put out a video in June 2023 called "How I Started Motovlogging on a Budget and How You Can Too." Why did you want to make that video?
I can't believe you watched that video. I'm honored. Thank you. I think you're one of the 500 people who watched that video. It's like that was during an experiment where I was trying to, understand how the YouTube game worked. And I was looking at numbers and all that. I never set out to be a YouTuber from the very start. I was like, I have a friend, I have a few friends actually who do YouTube, one of whom directed me towards your podcast, Mal. He's got a YouTube channel. But I have another friend as well who does YouTube full time. That's his job. If you want to talk to a YouTuber, a professional YouTuber, motorbike YouTuber, who makes his living through YouTube, then talk to him. That's Miles from the Free Miles MC channel. And he works so hard, man, for not a huge amount of money. It is a tough, tough gig to be in. Not only are you self-employed, but you have this big X factor, which is the unknown of how many views this video is going to get, how much money will I make from ad revenue. I never wanted to get sucked down that. So from the very start, I did not set out to be a YouTuber, but I was curious as to how the system worked. So I made that video what was it? 5 steps to be a motor vlogger or something like that.
How I started motor vlogging on a budget and how you can too.
I thought that was going to be a clickbaity title, which is why I made the video. But I don't think the story is my approach. My entry into this it's not unique. I started off with the cheapest gear I could find and just started making stuff. A few people watched it. A few more people watched it. The channel has been going for like 4 years now, and there is only 80 videos. So as you can see, I'm not the most prolific YouTuber out there. So.
But actually, one of the things that was interesting, what I liked about that video is at the end, or sort of maybe halfway through and towards the end, you were saying, you don't need all this fancy equipment and you shouldn't get all this fancy equipment to start with. What you should start with is this really cheap equipment and realize, and this is the thing that I thought was interesting, realize that you're going to have a measure of success because of you. Not because of this camera or that camera. People are going to hang around and want to keep watching you because of you. And the sooner you come to that realization and are comfortable with that, the more likely you are sort of to have success. And I thought that was actually really, really good advice, because it's not about having the fanciest camera. Fancy cameras are nice, and you can get to that point at some point in the future, but actually people will stick around because of you. And have you found that through the comments that you've got back through? Like, do you see the same people coming back and making comments to your YouTube videos?
Yeah, I have to say, like, my YouTube audience is small, but it's not an audience. It's more of a community. I have talked as I'm talking to you now through people who just initially popped up as names on my YouTube comments, and that was one of the purposes of going online in the first place, was to build up this community that I could share the world as I see it with. But no, the reason I do give that advice is because the people who I follow and enjoy watching, I really don't care if their videos are in 4K or not. I watch them because of it's them, and I like watching them. And I think not everyone will like watching them, just as I don't like watching some people, but that's a personal thing. It's nothing against them. It's just, you find, that's one of the wonderful things about the internet, is there is an audience out there for everyone. You've just got to go and find it. And I would also say, don't make too much of an effort. If you've got something to say, all right, pop your phone up, 30 seconds, say it. And if you feel the need to share it, then share it. Probably no one will watch it, but someone might. And for that one someone, it could be just the thing that they were looking to hear. So it's worth doing.
Yeah. We sort of maybe touched on this, but I want to be more specific about it and ask, as a filmmaker, yes, that's the term I'm using, where does your ambition lie? What would you like to do? What type of films do you want to be making in the future?
Yeah, that's a great one. I would love to do more professional, whatever that entails, documentaries, travel documentaries. Yeah, that's where the future hopefully will go for me. That's where I'm trying to get to. Going back to what we talked about before, working with other people. Yeah, I hope I will get to work with more people. I have a really good friend who's a videographer. He's actually an editor now, a professional editor, works in the industry, and he was my sort of entry into the whole industry. He helped me out getting started. He loaned me his gear. Without his help, the whole process would have been a lot more difficult. But with this upcoming expedition, we've talked about linking up at certain points, setting up more, sit-down interviews with people whose story I think really, we need to get this on camera. Would you come in and talk to us for an hour? Yeah, we'll start there. I still think that I will do most of the filming, the travel filming by myself, simply for budget reasons, but also enjoyment reasons. I travel alone because I enjoy it. Most of the time, I'm not actually alone because you constantly meet other people on the road, or you just embed yourself with some people who live in wherever you have traveled through. You stay with them for a couple of days or a night or whatever. So yeah, for a solo traveler, you spend very little time actually solo, and that's the way I like it, because you can pick up and leave off with people as the natural ebb and flow of each other's desires comes and goes. It's a natural. I like doing it. I don't know. It's traveling with someone long term, especially if there's a creative element involved. It could get a little bit. It would put a different slant on the whole experience. So for now, I'll keep traveling by myself, but the ambition is to make more polished media.
And what's the next trip or the next film project that you've got planned?
The next expedition, which I'm in the process of planning, saving money for, is Africa. That's hopefully going to happen next year. So, yeah, that's my. I can't wait, man. The last 7-8 months here in Ireland, been getting really restless. So I'm looking forward to getting back on the road.
And what are you currently riding at the moment? Because we see. And I'm going to say it's your dad's 1150, in the videos all the time. And I assume it's still your dad's 1150. But, what's your daily driver and what are you hoping to take away to Africa?
My daily rider is a Bonneville T100, which was my first bike. I bought it when I was 21. Got a loan from the bank because it's not a cheap bike. And there was, sort of like what I was saying, don't buy your camera gear. Don't buy the expensive camera gear first. Start with something cheap. There's also an argument to be made that if you want to do something, if you fall in love with something, even if you're not, the most professional or capable rider, get up every morning with something that you just can't wait to ride. And for me, that was when I first saw the Bonnie parked on the street, I just fell in love with it. It's such a gorgeous bike. Oh man, an absolute classic. The GS, you're right. Technically I own the GS on paper for paper reasons. Traveling through, it cannot be in someone else's name. It's on my name, but it is and always will be my dad's bike because I'm still a kid in my head, imagining being on the back of that bike when he was riding us. Dropping us in and out of music classes, and yeah. It's part of the family, that GS. It's parked up in my family home with a garage there. I'm working on it very slowly, learning my way around it actually, which I'm enjoying. I don't have much mechanical experience, simply because I've never had to do it before. But I do like working with my hands, so I'm enjoying getting around it.
Yeah, and shout out to Mal again, who's from Mal versus Machine, he's been a tremendous resource for you. I know.
Yeah, because he's a GS rider as well, and a lot of his videos are about working on a GS. So it's like the Oxford Dictionary for GS riders. His channel. Yeah.
Just in terms of the mix between motorcycling and filmmaking, what bike or type of bike do you consider to be ideal for filmmaking, or as a filmmaking platform if you're going to be traveling and filming?
Yeah. I think I will take the GS to Africa, assuming I don't really mess it up in the in the garage. Simply because, it's a huge bike. It's heavy, but it has a lot of storage. And when you've got laptops and gear and stuff, you've got to set aside the whole top box for camera equipment. and you need a bike that is capable of taking all of that. When I was going around Australia on that little 125, I had the camera. Yeah, guaranteed it was only my little Sony Alpha, but it was after a couple of hours on your shoulder, that thing hurts. It really hurts. And I had my laptop in a rucksack strapped to the back, which isn't great for the laptop, of course, with all the bumps and such. So yeah, I think I will take the GS. You can do it on smaller bikes, of course, but it's also just the bike I have. I don't really want to buy another bike. I have a sentimental attachment to the GS as well. So it's a good platform for transporting your tech and your gear, as well as, yeah, it's what I know.
Okay, on the home straight now, I want to ask you, with regards to your own filmmaking, who have you taken inspiration from, and who would you recommend others to watch?
The fact is, I don't watch much YouTube, actually. Yeah, for enjoyment, when I click off Premiere, when I turn it off, I will either not look at a screen at all, or I'll play some video games with my friends. I don't watch much YouTube. I watch a lot of films. Growing up, we didn't have TV, and we had a TV that was first connected to a video player and then a DVD player. So we were very much a movie household. Every Saturday night was movie night, and yeah, it was always classics. So everything from the 50s onwards. I was thinking about this in preparation for this question, because I watched Spinal Tap 2 yesterday. Very sweet movie, very nostalgic. But I was thinking, I don't really like movies of the current era so much. The media of the last 15 years that I think is good tends to be more TV. Like when quality TV came along in the 2000s, when you have these epic miniseries, you've got 10 to 12 hours to tell a story there. And with the budgets increasing, it drew, I think, the people who were, would have been making films are now making TV series. So yeah, classic movies, modern TV. I think that's where I go to for my media consumption.
Yeah, that completely resonates with me. But I won't bore you or the listeners with my current favourites, though I could, but I won't. Well, you know what the last question is going to be, but I will at least ask it.
Would you like me to ask it? I'll ask it for you if you like. Simon, do you think that filming, enhances or takes away from the ride in your case? You're going red. I can see the sweat coming at the back of the head there.
This is supposed to be about you. So you have to answer your own question.
Yeah. And I've come up with an answer to this. I set out either to ride or to shoot, and the two are very separate endeavors. When I go out to make something for, my YouTube channel, I'm going and riding with the intention of shooting. And that is a different experience to, just taking the Bonnie out for a spin around the hills. When I do that, I switch off. I do it for, riding is like in my case, the best mental health aid ever. So yeah, I do still go out and ride without cameras. When I take the cameras out, it's a different experience. And all my traveling, all my overlanding is done. The overlanding is interesting, actually. It's done with an emphasis on, I'm doing this to share it. I'm bringing people along. I'm showing people what I see through the visor. And I get a lot of fulfillment and satisfaction out of doing that. There are times, though, when I'm, link up with another rider that I'm envious of just how they can just ride without having to worry and stop. And yeah, maybe sometime in the future I'll do a world trip for just myself. But for right now, what I'm doing, I enjoy the process, and the two are actually mutually exclusive. It's sort of like if you sit down at a piano in your home, you play, and you're just playing for yourself. Whereas if you've got a performance, you're playing for an audience. And they're very different experiences. One is no better or worse or more enjoyable than the other. They have their time and place. And it's a great thing. So I'm really lucky to be able to just choose what I want to do, which one I want to do.
Thanks so much for being my guest for this episode, Ferdia. Please tell listeners where they can find your work online.
Yeah, no, thank you. It's been an absolute pleasure chatting with you. I've never done a podcast before, so you've made the whole experience really easy and enjoyable. Thank you, and thank you to all your listeners as well. And I hope I haven't rattled on too much. If you do want to see more of me, I don't know why, but you can find me at Unordinary World on YouTube. Go to my website, unordinaryworld.com. On Instagram, I'm at Ferdia_unordinaryworld, and you can find me there and say hi.
Cool. I'll put all those links in the show notes. Thanks so much for being here today. Good luck with the planning and then the execution of the Africa trip. And as always, take care and ride safe.
Yeah, mind yourself. Thank you.